Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our QuickBooks series, How to Process Payroll in QuickBooks Online. We'll get started in just a few minutes. In the meantime, if you will take a minute to respond to our poll, and if you would like to add your name and the name of your business, and if you'd like to put your website or your social handles in the chat, you're welcome to do that, and we can have conversation in there. I'll be keeping an eye on that as Tom is presenting today, and excited that you are all here. Get started in just a couple minutes. Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our QuickBooks series, How to Process Payroll in QuickBooks Online. And happy April, happy Financial Literacy Month. We've got a lot going on at the SBDC, and so excited that you all have taken time out of your busy day to join us this afternoon. For those of you that are just joining us, if you would take a minute to respond to the poll, and if you've already done that, thank you so much for doing that. And if you'd like to, we'd love to have some conversation in the chat with you all today as we're presenting. So if you would like to add your name and your business, and if you want to post your social channels or your website in there, we'd love to have some additional conversation there in the chat. And we'll leave the poll up for just a few more minutes as folks are filing in from the waiting room for us. And a few housekeeping notes as we're getting started. This event is being recorded, and we will send this out to you after the event is complete. If you would, please keep your microphone muted if you are not speaking. That helps us have a clear transcript. If you would like to have closed captioning, that is available in the bottom of your menu. If you will click on that, and that will prompt Tom and I to turn that on for you. And like I mentioned, if you would like to add any information into the chat, we'd love to have a conversation there. All right. My name is Heather Fay, and I am the Regional Program Director and Botetourt Advisor for the Roanoke Regional Small Business Development Center. We're a small and mighty team that serves small businesses throughout our region. We offer confidential advising, education, workshops, events and online resources like those that are shown here on the screen to help you and your business thrive. We invite you to reach out to us if you haven't already to start a relationship with an advisor and take your business to the next level. The Roanoke Regional SBDC is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration and is supported by America's SBDC, the Virginia SBDC, the Mason Enterprise Center at George Mason University. Pandemic-related capacity building grant funding has been provided by Go Virginia, and other funding is provided by local administrations, economic development offices, organizations, and other small businesses that are champions and are also in your corner. We want to give a special shout out to our host, the Roanoke Regional Chamber of Commerce, who provides support and space for our work. The Roanoke Regional SBDC currently serves the Greater Roanoke Valley, Franklin County, Allegheny Highlands, and the New River Valley. If you are joining us outside of that region, there is a map displayed on the screen that shows all the different SBDCs across the Commonwealth of Virginia. And if you're joining us from outside of Virginia, there are SBDCs all over the United States that we can help you get connected to. The Virginia SBDC network is the most extensive business development program in the Commonwealth. All right, let's get right to it. Our presenter today is Tom Tanner. Tom is our regional advising team lead, and he's also our vet biz coordinator. And Tom is also a QuickBooks Pro advisor. Tom, thank you so much for being willing to present today. We are so excited to have your knowledge and expertise with us. And I'm going to stop sharing so that you can share your screen and we'll rock and roll.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. If you haven't taken this poll, please go ahead and fill that out so I can kind of see who is here today while I figure out this whole screen sharing thing. Make sure I'm working correctly. Did that work?
Perfect.
All right. First time. All
Hi,
right.
Tom.
So what we're going to talk about today is QuickBooks Online using the payroll module that's built into QuickBooks. And we're going to try to cover as much as we can. It's a pretty robust system, so I'm probably not going to cover everything today, but certainly going to be enough to provide you a really good working knowledge of QuickBooks Online. I'm going to end this poll in 10 seconds. Everybody's got 10 seconds to answer if you haven't answered it. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, just one more person. All right, nobody else is going to answer. Hit end poll. So I'm going to share results so we can kind of see who's here. We have, it looks like me, mostly small business owners. It looks like a lot of people, a few people are using QuickBooks Desktop. A lot of you are already using QuickBooks Online. Some of you using Xero and others using others. Currently using Payroll. A lot of you don't have any employees yet, which is good because it kind of show you from step one. Some of you are already using QuickBooks Payroll or Gusto or some other program. That means you already have employees. And why are you here today? Seeking an easy solution, less expensive solution, exploring bringing payroll in-house, integrate with my current QuickBooks, and just exploring options. I should have put something like this, something like, I didn't have anything better to do today than sit in a QuickBooks class. All right, so I'm gonna hit stop sharing. We're gonna quit that, and we're gonna move on. So, for you individuals who do not have employees already, then the first thing you first have to do in order to be set up with payroll is that you have to have certain numbers from the state. If you're already doing payroll, you already have this, but for the ones that don't, you will need to register to get both set up for both withholding taxes and the Virginia Employment Commission for unemployment taxes. I'm not going to go through this whole process. I'm just going to show you a couple of things because it is kind of an involved process. It's something you can do offline or contact your local SBDC and we'll be glad to help you walk you through that process. But basically you would go to tax.virginia.gov. You would click on that login button up here at the top. And then you would then go to, get too many screens open. This page here, if you're a current iFile login customer, because maybe you're collecting sales tax, then you would deal with this middle section, just log into your account. If you're new, not necessarily a new business, but new to having employees, and you don't have an iFile account, then this is the one you would use over here. It says new users. So basically, once you do that, you set up an account, and it'll take you through the whole registration process. And basically what you're looking for is when you get to the business registration page, is clicking on this little button that says employer withholding taxes. So once you click on that, it's going to take you through a process of registering. It's going to ask you questions, et cetera, et cetera. And once you do that, it's going to pop up and give you a number at the very end of the process. And that is going to be your withholding tax number, which is basically your EIN number with a 30 in front of it, and usually an F001 at the end of it. So once you finish this, the next page is going to pop up, is going to look like this. It says, welcome, your registration is not complete because now you want to register with the Virginia Employment Commission. So if you're in a case where you already have an iFile account because of sales tax, then you would just log into your account. And in your account, you would have this little thing that says register with the VEC. So if you click on that, it would take you to the same place. And then you hit continue registration. It would now take you to this page, which is the new employer registration for the VEC, which I'm also not going to go over. I just want to point out these are the steps you go to. I do want to point out, because this is a blocking issue that a lot of people have, is that you'll notice at the bottom it says disable all pop-up blockers, because as you go through this process, especially when you get to the addresses and you click submit and you're sitting there waiting for something to happen and nothing happens, and you hit submit like 1,400 times and still nothing happens. If you look at the very top of your browser, there's a little box here, has a little red note, and it says this is your pop-up blockers. If you click on that and click allow, then everything will work fine. So anyway, so once you go through all that process, it's going to pop up and give you this particular screen that's going to show your employer name. It's going to show your VEC unemployment account number. Okay, and then it's going to also show you your unemployment tax rate. So both of those numbers are going to be needed as you fulfill your payroll setup procedure. All right. So now you are ready to start the work towards QuickBooks. So I've got this class broken into two sections. The first class is going to be from a PowerPoint. So what I did a lot of screenshots to kind of show you the process, because it's kind of time consuming. QuickBooks does not have a demo program for their payroll. So I took in a bunch of screenshots and put them in here. Plus it's going to be easier because we'll send you this, this PowerPoint presentation at the end of the meeting, along with sometime in the near future, a copy of the actual presentation. So first off, we have a discount code as part of the SBDC. So if you click on that, it'll take you to this screen here. This screen here will show you at the top, it will show you whether it's an accounting or payroll. It's probably going to take you directly to the accounting tab. If you don't have QuickBooks accounting, then click on that. It'll take you through the discount process for QuickBooks accounting. If you do have, you can click on the payroll. It's going to take you to this page here, which shows you the pricing, and it's a 30% discount off for 12 months. Okay, I'm going to move to the next one, which is going to go over the kind of the discounts. This is the discount you receive if you just go to QuickBooks in general or go through your own program. It'll show you a 50% discount for 3 months. So just remember these numbers here, this $22.50 is the 50% off for 3 months. It's It's not this little tiny number here that's the 45, which you're going to be paying the rest of your life. Okay. So the first thing is there's also an additional charge of $4 per employee if you're under the core function. If you're under premium, it's going to be $8 per employee. I don't think anybody here is probably going to be using the Elite because it's a very vast program. It's $125 a month plus $10 for each employee. So we're going to concentrate more on these two here. So under all of these, they all have what we call full service payroll. And what we mean by full service payroll is that QuickBooks pretty much does all the processing of the direct deposits, the employment taxes, the employment forms, et cetera, et cetera. You don't really have to do anything. So it makes it very simple from the process. Now, again, this applies to the online version, does not apply to the desktop version. If anybody's using desktop, they realize that. So the other thing is in all the programs, they have the 1099 e-file and pay. So they have, if you set up subcontractors, they can e-file your 1099s for you. I will say they charge you for those. So it's not a free service. The free service is letting you enter the data and track it. The cost is actually electronically filing it and letting QuickBooks mail the 1099 to the vendor for you. There's also under the core program, you have next day direct deposit. So as long as you do your payroll before 5 o'clock, your employees would get their direct deposits the next day. If you're using the premium service or the elite service, they can actually deposit the money the same day. So it's accessible to the employees. And they also, under the premium and the elite, they also have a track where your employees can track where they're at, clock in and clock out based on jobs and things like that. All right, now we're going to jump into the setup side of the equation. So what we're going to do is go through the setup procedures. Then I'm going to pop off to a live program to kind of show you how to set up an employee, set up the different pay types and deductions and things like that. And then we're going to pop back over to a PowerPoint to finish up going over all the way the taxes are handled. So once you decide what you want to do, you just hit this little Buy Now button. All right, so now this is going to show you if you're doing it within QuickBooks, you would go to the payroll and it would show this screen here, and then you would hit Get Started. It would now take you to this screen, which is your payroll screen, which you'll see anytime you're in payroll once you get started. And when you click on that, the first thing you're going to see is this button here. It's going to say, wow, what would you like for this program to accomplish? And you go, oh, I love all these things, and you click on all of them. Well, as you click on these buttons, the price goes up. So you really have to look at it and figure out what is it that I really need. If I don't need to track time or same-day deposits, I'll just need pay workers and file payroll taxes, then I'm going to qualify for the core program. If I need track time and same-day deposits, I may need the premium. If you start clicking these other boxes, it's now going to go to the elite. So just remember, more boxes, more money. So we're just going to say you decide on the core, which is just going to click on here. We're going to do the core, which is that particular price that we showed you on the previous screen. And you hit sign up and save 50%, or depending on what program you own, whatever your discount program is. All right, so one of the first questions is going to ask you, have you already paid employees? For individuals out there who have a payroll system already, which means you're already out there using another program, you're going to have to use starting balances. So you need to either click, if you do have employees and you need to start and enter employee balances, you need to click yes here. If you haven't paid anybody yet for the whole year, then you hit no. I'm not sure why anybody would pick, I'm not sure, because I would think you either know you did or didn't, but hopefully you're clicking yes or no. So if you click one of those buttons, let's say you click the yes button, you will see, not at this point, I'm just showing you these buttons while we're talking about it, is that when you're entering employees, one thing is going to happen. It's going to come up and say, hey, did you pay Mark in 2022? Well, it may not say Mark because you may not have a Mark, but it's going to say whoever your employee is, did you pay an owner after January 1st? And if you did, then it's going to ask you to enter this information here, because this is important, because it's going to all add to the balances so that the W-2 that you generate for the year is correct. All right, so now we're going to jump back to the next stage, which is, when is your next payday? When did you plan on doing your next payday? And you just click on there and then you hit next. It's going to ask you where the primary work location is. And that would be most likely your office type, or you're listing with the main business. And you click next. And then it's going to ask you, who's your payroll contact? Who's the person that I need to contact, or that's contact in the event that there's something to do with payroll? That goes there. So now you've set up the two first sections of payroll. And you'll notice this is the same screen we had earlier that showed all the little things, employees, contractors, workman's comp. And you've now completed 2 of the setup tasks. All right, so now you have the option to say, tell us about your team. You can hit start right there, and it will go to this screen here. It says add an employee. And then when you hit add an employee, it will go through this screen here. I'm not going to cover this because we're going to do that in the live version. I just want to show you, but I do want to point out this one thing. You'll see this big new button right here with a little check mark there. So if you enter an employee's name and information along with their email address, what will happen is when you finish this, the employee will get sent an invite where they can go in and set up their account, and they enter their W-2 information, they enter their direct deposit information, they enter their birthday, they have access to their pay stubs, they have access to their W-2 at the end of the year, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can get employees to do that, I would do that just to make it simpler. If not, and you're going to have to enter some of this data, you have to uncheck it, because with this checked, you cannot enter your W-2, W-4 information. So anyway, this is what an employee would receive. You're invited to view your pay stubs online, okay? And they would create an account, and it goes through the process. I'll ask them to fill out their information. All right, so we're not going to do any employees because we're going to do that in a few minutes. So what we're going to do next is we've got to connect our bank account. It's somehow we have to be able to pay both our taxes and our employees from a bank account. So even if you have QuickBooks Online now, your bank account is attached to your QuickBooks Online for downloading your regular transactions. But we have to set it up to now match to the bank account for payroll. You may have multiple bank accounts. We want to know which one you're going to use for payroll, taxes, et cetera, et cetera. So if you currently have a bank account, you would go into here and hit get started. It would take you into the process of setting up your bank account. If you are new to this and do not have a bank account set up, or you're new to QuickBooks or new to QuickBooks Payroll, it's going to ask you to find your bank and set up a bank and attach it to the payroll. So you would see this particular screen. In this case here, I just type in First Citizen, you'll see multiple First Citizens. So one is you got to make sure you're picking the correct First Citizens link. And all of these kind of look the same. They all have firstcitizens.com, but they could be different First Citizens logins. So what happens is that you have to click on one, and sometimes it's a guess. It will come up with this screen and say, okay, enter your login information and your password. If it doesn't connect, then you might have to go back to this screen and pick another one to find the right one. And there's multiple banks that have this problem, that there's multiple banks and you have to pick the correct one. So anyway, if you already have a connection, then it's basically just going to here. And now we have to enter stuff about our principal owner of the company. So the owner's information will be listed here. It's going to list their zip code, city information, And this is the owner's address, because what you're doing is trying to verify. QuickBooks wants to verify the particular owner because they are taking some responsibility for the money that's in the payroll. So they want to make sure that the individual can cover any direct pay situation. Owner's birth date, mobile phone number that's connected to that particular customer's name, and the last four of their social security number. It's then going to ask you, what bank account do you want to use for payroll? In this circumstance, there's 3 different bank accounts. So you're going to need to decide which bank account am I going to be using just for payroll, and connect that to the bank account. And once you do that, it's got everything. It's got little check marks to it. It's like, hey, you're ready to roll. You hit submit. And now it says your bank account is connected. Sometimes it's not quite that quick. Sometimes it'll take minutes, a couple of minutes for them to verify information, etc. All right, so once that's done, you have to go back and also, I'm sorry, we got to do something else first. You also notice you'll see add workman's comp policy. So the next screen is, do you have workman's comp already? If you do, just click yes. If you don't, hit no, but realizing they're going to also ask you, do you want somebody to contact you about workman's comp? Okay, so unless you want to be inundated with calls, just be careful down the next screen to make sure you say, no, I'm not interested, or just click yes and say I'm covered because I'm getting it through somebody locally. All right, so now we are going to look for filling in our tax information, because that's the next step of our setup task. So it's going to ask you your general business information, company legal name, company address, city, state, et cetera, et cetera. All right, and now we're going to go to our federal tax information. So under the employee identification number, you're going to put your EIN number for the business. It's going to ask you which payroll tax form do you file with the IRS. Probably 99% of you out there, if not 100% of you out there, are going to be using the 941, and that's going to be what you select. The next box asks you, how often do you pay your taxes? It doesn't mean how often do you pay your taxes, how often are you supposed to be paying your taxes? So if you already are doing payroll, you've already set up a system that you're either doing it monthly or semi-weekly. Whatever that is what you're going to have to put there. If you are new, if you're a new business, or this is the first time you're hiring employees, you're going to set up as a monthly depositor. Okay, so you just click monthly and then you move forward. So the next step we're going to talk about is Virginia. So it's going to ask you about the withholding taxes. This is the thing we set up earlier in Virginia, where I said it's the EIN number with a 30 in the front and then probably an F001 at the end or something like that. Okay, that's the number you're going to end there. How often do you pay your taxes? Most of you probably again going to be monthly. If you're currently paying, look at what you're currently depositing now. Is it monthly or semi-weekly? Okay. Unemployment insurance, remember your VEC account number is that thing we got here. So that's your account number, and then UI rate is that 2.73. So you click yes and then put 2.73 there. And that's how QuickBooks is going to figure out how much you need to pay the state for unemployment each month. All right, so now we've kind of gone through most of this. We now have to go through the next step of setting up the final tax forms. It's going to say, I want QuickBooks to automatically pay and file my taxes. So this is one of the benefits of QuickBooks, is that it will automatically pay and file your taxes for you. You don't have to do anything manually. Now, obviously, you have to enter the data to process your payroll, but regards to your taxes and your quarterly reports, it'll do it automatically. So you have to finish setting up with that. So it's going to ask you, okay, we need to verify the rest of the information about you. So we're going to need your mobile phone number to verify before we can file with the IRS that it's okay for you to e-file your form. Once you do that, it will go through a process, sometimes quick, sometimes days or whatever. And then you'll get to this screen here. It'll say, okay, we want to confirm that this is your officer's first and last name. We want to confirm that this is your federal tax number, your VEC number, and your VEC account number.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Connie Stewart calling. How are you today?
Okay. The next thing is it's going to come up and say all your setup tasks are done. If there's something that's missing, we will let you know. You hit done and you are set up. Now, sometimes to set up with e-file and e-pay could take a couple of days. It could take a week or more. And that affects your ability to e-file the return and e-file the pay. It doesn't necessarily affect your paying people, but it could affect the actual payments of the taxes and the quarterly reports. All right. So once that's all done, we're now ready to jump into the actual setup procedures in QuickBooks. So if you're familiar with QuickBooks Online, if you're currently using that, you'll know where the little gear is. If not, when you open up QuickBooks, there's a little gear up here. And this little gear gives you your toolbars and other things. Under there is going to be a new thing set up. Since you set up payroll, it's going to say payroll settings. So if you click on that button, it is going to take you to this screen here. And this screen here allows you to edit a bunch of information as it changes, if anything changes as to address, contacts, or anything else. There's a couple of ones I want to go over. One is this Virginia tax. So if you click on the little pencil over here, it's going to edit it and throw it up here and show, okay, this is your Virginia withholding number. This is your Virginia withholding. You would change that. If it's your VEC numbers change, there shouldn't be any reason it does. The biggest thing it might change is this rate. If you get notified from the Virginia Employment Commission that you have a new rate, you would put your new rate here, change the effective date, and then hit OK. So that's typically the only time you would really change anything in here. Under taxes and forms, if you hit the edit button there, it's going to bring up this screen. And it's got a little button that says automate taxes and forms. So that's automatically checked because this QuickBooks is saying, okay, we know you want to go ahead and just let QuickBooks handle all this filing for you. Well, it may be some of you don't want QuickBooks to automatically do that. Maybe you want to review it before you file it, or actually file it the date that you want it to file. And the cases may be that your bank account goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And you might say, well, I'd rather file it a day. I know I got money in the bank account. So I'm going to uncheck that. And then I'm going to make sure I file it on time, but I'm going to review it and then click file now, rather than have QuickBooks automatically file it when it wants to, which may or may not be the time that I have money in my account. The same thing with reports. Maybe I want to review the reports in detail before they file them. Or maybe I want to go ahead and file them as soon as possible, where QuickBooks may wait to the end of the month to file. All right, so that's that one. The other one is this accounting section, and we're going to go in detail when we get into the live program. It's going to allow you to look at all your chart of accounts and how each thing is mapped. And this will make more sense once we get into showing you the live version of that. All right, so this shows you what you look like if you go into these and everything is finished. You'll notice the to-do list is all gone, everything's caught up. So it also provides you shortcuts. It says, okay, run payroll, add employee, pay contractor, whatever else. There's all these little shortcuts. If you have paydays, you have 4 days until paydays. Maybe you want to view the paycheck list. You can click on this, and if everything's set, then you can just enter the check number, print, and be gone. All right, so now what I'm going to do is jump over. Let's attempt to jump over. I think I'm just going to stop share for a second to make sure it's done correctly. I'm going to open up my QuickBooks. All right, is everybody looking at my QuickBooks? Heather, good? Okay. All right, so this is QuickBooks Live. So this is the live version. You'll see the setup procedure. These are all your setup tasks here. You'll see we've accomplished almost everything so far. The only thing we haven't done is set up our team yet. So we can hit start now and it will take us to a setup team. We can go to employees and set up a team, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing I want to show you is contractor. So if you click on contractor, this would be your 1099 contractors. We don't have any yet. So we hit add to you, add your first. If you hit the name, let's just put Tom in here. Tom Doe. Okay. Whoop. Put Tom Doe here, and we're going to put, I'll just put Tom Doe at gmail.com. All right. So I'm going to say, okay, I want to send this information to the contractor and let him provide me my W-9 information, which is my employer taxpayer information, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. If I don't want to do that, and he's going to give me a W-9, I'll unclick that, hit add contractor. And now if I click on add here, it's going to ask me, is this an individual? If it's an individual, it's going to ask me for a social security number. If it's a business, it's going to ask me for an EIN number. Okay. And then once you do that, it is all set up. And then you have your contractors all listed. And then as long as you're paying them through there, then if you want to use the 1099 function at the end of the year, it'll take you through that process. All right. So now I want to jump into the employees. So let's go ahead and say you now want to add an employee. So we're going to hit add an employee. So the first thing we're going to do is put a name in here. I'm just going to put my name in here and my email address. All right. So remember this little button here. I said, if you click on that button there, I'm going to have to, as the employee, fill out all the information. If I unclick it, I need to make sure that the employee is providing me the W-2 information, probably the information for the direct deposits and things like that. So I can enter them directly myself. All right, so the second step is hire date. So let's just say I started on April 1st. Okay. And then I click the work location. So the next thing is, how often do I pay Tom? And Tom's probably saying not enough, but what we're going to do here is click on that little pencil there. And now I'm given the option is it every week? Is it every other week? Is it twice a month? And if it's twice a month, I can click on this custom and then actually tell it what days of each month that I can pay it if it's twice a month. Or is it every month? The thing you want to remember is when you set up a pay schedule, you want to make sure that you name it down here for the whatever it is. Like this is every month, name it every month. If you decide to do every week, make sure you change it and name it to every week so that it has a particular name. So if you're trying to sort through and say, okay, I want to pay it based on this particular schedule, then you know what that every month means every month and every week means every week. So it doesn't get confusing. You can also click this little button here, is use this pay schedule for employees you add after this one. In other words, if this is going to procedure you're going to use from now on for paying people the pay schedule, click that box and it's going to automatically default to that. You can always uncheck it, but it's going to automatically default to it. So if you want to see how the upcoming pay periods are going to look, you'll see the next payday is 4/15. Of course, I can change that. End of the next pay period is the 15th. So what I'm saying is that the next pay period is 4/9 through 4/15, and I'm going to pay on 4/15. Well, that may be reasonable for some businesses. It may not. It may be that you pay in the next day. So you may click this and go, it's the 16th, or maybe the payroll ends on the 14th and pay it on the 15th, or whatever it is. You have that option to set this up, and you can even set up employees so that you're paying some employees every week, you're paying some employees every other week, and you're paying some employees every month. So you have the ability to do it however you want. And when you sort to pay employees, QuickBooks is going to pull up the people who are due to be paid in that particular pay period. So we're going to just set this up as once a month. Okay. All right. So we're going to hit save. And now I've got how often he's paid. So the next question is how much? So you can set him up as salary, hourly, or if just commission only. So we're going to set up his hourly, and we're going to enter $15 an hour. If you want to put default hours in there, and all that is say, the person works 8 days a week, 5 days a week, then what's going to happen is going to populate your payroll to have that information in there. I would leave it blank because whatever you put in there is probably going to be deleted because you're going to end up putting whatever you need to in there anyway. So I'm just going to delete that. All right. So is there other pay types that this particular employee may have needs for? So I'm going to hit add additional pay types. Now let's just say this particular employee, Tom, is going to be also subject to overtime pay. So I'm going to click that one. He's also paid bonuses from time to time. Let's just say for some reason he gets cash tips. And I've also set up this little account called cost of goods account. And you can name whatever you want. And this makes more sense when we get into the setup of the general ledger account numbers. But I'm going to click this just to show you. And what it means, let's just take an example that Tom works for a landscaping business. Half the time or part of the time he works in the office doing office work, which you want to keep track of it just as general office labor. But then the other times he works in the field as a laborer in the landscaping business. So you want to keep track of that landscaping labor as a cost of goods so you can apply it directly to whether income. So it helps you understand what cost that you have associated with the income that's being produced. So we're going to set him up that way. So now we've got him set up with cost of goods, overtime, bonuses, cash tips, etc. All right. So the next thing you have is you can have paid time off policies. And you can create whichever ones you want. I had set this one up new, but you can hit add new time off policy. And you can have it set up so that at the beginning of the year, you give a certain number of hours to everybody for paid time off. You can have it for every hour worked, they get a certain amount. You can have it set up on the anniversary date, they get a certain amount, or unlimited, which I'm sure everybody'd like to have. But so that helps you kind of put into equation. Let me just go ahead and let me hit cancel here, and I'm going to use my quarter of an hour. All right, and then it even allows you to put a current balance. If, in other words, if you've been running payroll and that individual already has paid time off, you can put those numbers in there. So I'm just going to put 10 hours just so you can see it. All right, if you don't have a paid off time policy and you happen to have an unpaid time off policy or a sick pay or a vacation pay, you can also set up those policies also. All right, so now a little bit farther, you have this additional pay types. So we click on that one, and this is going to be things like tips, group life insurance. If you're a 2% S corporation, health insurance, that's affected different, payroll's handled different, bereavement pay or whatever it may be, is that you can click these as different additional pay types that you may have that has to show up on your W-2 form. All right, so we got him all taken care of. We're going to hit save. And now we're going down to Tom's deductions. So we're going to click on add deductions. Now it's going to come up and say, we're going to add a deduction contributions. And over here, I've got a couple things set up, which is medical, 401k, 401k catch up. So if you click on just the add deductions, I just want to show you what's there. It's going to show you Here's FSA accounts. It'll show you HSA plans. It'll show you other taxable deductions, health insurance, retirement plans, etc. And you can set up whatever you want. So I'm going to start with medical insurance. Let's just say you have medical insurance. This employee pays $50 every month or every pay period. We already set it up as a medical insurance, and it shows it as pre-tax insurance payment premium. If for some reason it is not, let's just say you're setting up disability insurance and you want the disability insurance to show up as post-tax, as taxable insurance premiums, then you would need to set up something that shows that and click on the taxable insurance premium button. Let's just say also company contributions are $75. And you would need to put that in there because it would also show up on your W-2 form as the employer's contribution of that. So the more that you can make automated, the better off you are. So we're going to hit save. All right, so now let's say we also want to set up a 401k deduction. And in the setup, you'll see there's a 401k deduction and a 401k deduction catch-up. So the difference is 401k is going to be for people who are under 50. They're going to be limited to the cap for the standard 401k deduction, which is $20,500. If it's a 401k deduction catch-up, which means you're 50 and above, your limitation is 27,000. So we're going to say he's set at that, and you'll see down here it says annual maximum of 27. QuickBooks already plugs that in there. So if for some reason you haven't been paying attention and it gets to that $27,000 mark, QuickBooks will stop because there's a fine if you actually over contribute to it. So now we're going to set this up and hit percent. Let's just say Tom's contributing 5% and the company's contributing 2%. Okay, so that's the way you would set up 401k. You hit save. And that's the way you would do all your deductions, depending on what type of deductions or contributions that you have. If you need to edit them, you click on the little pencil. If you need to delete, you just hit the little trash can. If you have a garnishment, then you would click on add garnishment. You would select what is it? Is it child support? Is there a maximum percentages? In Virginia, there's a maximum percent that you can take out of child support, et cetera, et cetera. Is there a federal tax levy that you have to take? Anyway, we're going to say Tom is all caught up. You don't have any garnishments, but that's how you would set up garnishments. Once that's done, you hit done. All right, so we're rolling down the page here. So the next thing we got is we're going to enter the W-4 information because Tom didn't do it online. So under this circumstance, you have the W-4 sitting in front of you. So all you're doing is copying down information that's directly in front of you. So we're going to put in here Tom's information. We're going to put in his Social Security number. And we're going to look on the W-2 and fill out the rest of this stuff. We're just going to say that he's married, filing jointly, and the rest of this stuff, he's all left alone. So we're not going to make any changes from there. And then we hit save. All right, so next thing we got is what's this birthday? So 01/01/1970. Let's just say it's that. All right, so now we got that information in the system. The last thing we have is, how do we want to pay Tom? Do we want to pay him by paper check or do we want to pay him by direct deposit? Is there any cases that he wants to be paid by direct deposit? Then you always want to set that up. So we're going to hit enter bank information. We're going to say it's a checking account. We're going to say it's this particular routing number. And we're going to say it's really difficult account number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. And then we hit save. And now he is set up for direct deposit. You can hit done. And now this employee is all set up for being paid. And then you would just enter your other employees exactly the same way. All right. Now the next step is look at it as I need to pay this person. So let's just say we're going to run, it's time to run payroll. It says the first one's due 4/14, but we're just going to go ahead and do it right now anyway. So we're going to hit run payroll. And each employee is going to come up here. You'll notice all those boxes that I checked under the employee is showing up here. In other words, it's showing up regular pay hours. It's showing cost of good hours. It's showing overtime hours. It's showing paid time off hours. It's showing bonus dollars. It's showing cash tips. So it's pretty much showing everything that I checked off as a possible thing. So we're going to say his regular hours were 40 hours. We're going to say his cost of good hours were 40 hours. That means he worked 40 hours, maybe in the office and 40 hours in the field. And let's just say he had 10 hours of overtime hours. Let's say he just had 2 hours of paid time off. We gave him a $50 bonus because he was doing such a good job. And he had customers gave him tips of 25 bucks. Okay. All right. So now you've kind of entered it for this particular employee. If you want to see how the breakdown is by money, you can go down here and click on the little pencil right here. And it will show the breakdown. It will show you 40 hours times 15, 40 hours times 15. It will show you your overtime pay, which is $22.50. It'll add up that amount. It'll show your paid time off. It'll show your bonus in there. If you want to change your bonus, you can do it right there. If you have cash tips, you need to modify it. You can do it right there. It'll show employee taxes. And this is a good case where you come down and go, well, the way this employee's set up, he's making 1,500 bucks, but no taxes are coming out. And that's obviously the way his W-2 is configured because he's being paid on a monthly basis. He's not making enough money for the tax table to say that he needs to take money out. Well, it may be he messed up his W-4 and he has a spouse that makes pretty good money, which means he's going to get hammered at tax time. So one is you just need to talk to him and say, hey, there's not enough federal tax being done. And he may give you a W-4 right then, and then you could change it right here and say, okay, he wants to take an extra $100 out of this pay period. You can do that. All right, the same thing with Virginia tax. All right, then you can click on employee deductions. You can see there's 5% of that is your $75. He had a $50 deduction for medical insurance. If you go on our employee taxes, you can see what your share of all the federal unemployment insurance, state unemployment, Medicare, Social Security taxes are for that particular employee. Okay. And if everything looks okay, you just hit okay. And then we're going to hit review payroll, and that's going to take you into the next screen, and it's going to list all your payroll. And there's a little button at the bottom. It says preview payroll details. We're going to click on that. And this is going to show all your employees. It's going to, this case here, I've only got one employee, so it's going to show the employee and the company totals, and they're going to be the same here. But if you have multiple employees, this is going to be your company total. So you just want to review that to make sure there's nothing that looks crazy or anything else that you accidentally keyed in a number wrong. All right. So once you do that, then you just hit submit payroll. I'm not going to hit submit payroll since this is a live program and I don't want to be paying myself, even though it'd be a pretty good deal. All right. So we're going to hit close that. So that kind of shows you the process of paying somebody, or runs you through the process of setting up the employee, et cetera. So the next thing I want to show you is the tax side of the equation. I'm just going to show you one piece here, and then we're going to roll back over into the payroll program to kind of show you the next steps. So you'll see this little button here. It says tax setup. So I'm going to click on tax setup. And as I mentioned before, this is your information that you can go in and change, like your Virginia tax, et cetera. what we're primarily looking for is this accounting down here. We're going to hit this little button here, hit edit. And this is going to show you where all your expenses and liabilities are tracking to or mapped to for your profit and loss statement as part of your general ledger accounts. And most of these may be set up fine, especially your liabilities are probably set up fine. I probably wouldn't change those. The only thing you might change is that, do you want to call this payroll taxes something different? Or like employee wages, let's just click on that. I have the option of, here we go, of all my employees being posted to one account. So let's just say I'm saying, okay, all of them go to wages. So, oops. All of them go to payroll expenses. So I'll just hit that when it goes to them. I have the other option that says each employee's wages are posted to their own expense account. So I click on that, and now I can say I'll have all my employees listed down here. And then I can put on here what it's for. So let's just say Tom, under this scenario, all his wages go to COGS. So I'm going to put payroll, and you'll see, well, should be cost of goods. That's what it is. Okay, cost of labor. So let's just say I want Tom Tanner's, all his is going to the cost of labor. So again, when I run my profit and loss statement, my wages for Tom Tanner is going to be under the cost of labor, which is going to be in the cost of goods section. I can even be more difficult than that and click on here and go, each employee's wages are posted to different accounts. So I can say, okay, if it's regular wages, it goes under payroll expenses. If it's cost of goods, it goes under cost of labor. If it's overtime, it goes under overtime payroll. In that way, all of those different things will track different on your profit and loss statement. So when you do your profit and loss statement, you don't have just all your labor hours dumped into a payroll account. You've actually got it broken down by what is important to you for monitoring your business. All right, so that's the way that works, which is a pretty cool feature. All right, the other thing, is under the payroll tax center. If you click on filings, and I'm going to go through the payroll filings in a second, you'll see a little button down here. It says employee setup. So if you click on employee setup, it's going to take you into each employee, and it's going to say, okay, authorization for direct deposit. So if I'm getting somebody fill out a direct deposit sheet, I'm going to have this particular form manually filled out, and he's going to present it to me so that I can keep in my file. The same thing with the I-9 form. It's going to provide you the current W-4 form, the current VA-4 form. Okay, so these forms, all current, are available to you. They don't put it in the system. All they do is it provides you a PDF so that you can provide it to the employee to fill out. All right, so now I want to stop sharing. We're going to jump back into the all right. Pardon a second. I'm trying to find my correct thing. All right, so now we're going to share again. We hope we're sharing this correctly. Oops. All right.
It's not showing up.
All right. So what did I do wrong here? Still not showing correctly. Oh, That's because I always forget to hit the share button.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
There we go.
So which one are you seeing?
See the employee setup forms, and now I see your desktop.
Yeah, that's not what I want to show. All right. So let's make sure. All right, so now you seeing the section 4 payroll taxes?
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so now we're going to talk about the payroll taxes section. And again, this refers back. So if you go under taxes and then click on this little button that says payments, it's going to take you to this section here. This section here is going to show you the taxes that are scheduled to be paid. Now, this particular system is set up so it does automatically pay. So in other words, you're not looking at anything and anything else. In other words, you don't even log into QuickBooks, it will automatically pay it when it says it's going to pay it. And you'll see that it says federal taxes for March 1st through March 31st are scheduled to be paid on 4/15/2022. And that QuickBooks is going to take it out on 4/8, okay, for $740.68. The one is that alerts you to say, I better make sure I've got that money in my bank account on 4/8. All right. So you also would see Virginia income tax is also scheduled to be taken out automatically on 4/25 for 127. You'll see unemployment that's scheduled to be taken out for 193. And you'll see these accruing ones. That's because we started a new quarter in April. And this is 4/1 through 4/30. So it's accruing your taxes for this particular quarter. And if you click on that little down arrow for like federal taxes, this just shows you the total, how that's made up. That may be insignificant to you, but I just want to show it to you. All right. At the bottom of that page, you'll see a button that says tax payment history. So under the tax payment history, you click on that. It's going to show you the tax payments that have been made already. So this will show you taxes made for 740 on 4/8, Virginia income tax, federal taxes on 3/8, 2/14, 2/8, what it was for. Okay, and you can pull this up by this year, this month, this quarter, or whatever. You'll also see a button that says tax liability report. So under the tax liability report, this is just going to be a report that pulls up. Again, you can sort it by quarter, month, this year, whatever, and it's going to show you how much your taxes have been for the business all year long, what type of, how much Social Security taxes, how much withholding taxes you've had, et cetera, et cetera. So this is just a snapshot for your liability. Now, on this other section, we were looking at the payments. Now we're going to look at the filings. So the filings has to do with your quarterly payroll filings, which is your 941, and then your Virginia Employment Commission, which is your FC 20-21. These are also set up automatically to file. So you'll notice the 941 for the first quarter, which is January through March 2022, it's due on 5/2 of 2022. It's actually due on April 30th, but since April 30th is a weekend, it's not due to the following Monday. If for some reason, if you don't do anything, QuickBooks is just going to automatically file it. If you want to look at to make sure it's okay, you can just hit the preview button and it'll walk you through the process to make sure everything looks okay. The same thing with the VEC form. So the other thing was this archive button here. It's also, it says archive forms and filings. So if you click on that, you'll take you to this screen here where you can go down and look at anything that's been filed. So in other words, if you wanted to look at your W-3s or W-2s or whatever for last year, you can just click on that and it's going to open up a PDF showing those particular forms. It'll tell you when it was generated, when it was filed, et cetera, et cetera. So if an employee loses their W-2, they can just go to here and click on it, and you now have access to these forms. Sometimes it's people always trying to figure out where these things are. That's where they're at. And employee setup, I just talked about where I showed you those particular forms. And in one of the forms I was talking about, this is just an example. This is the bank deposit form that if you have somebody who's going to make the direct deposit, this is what they would need to fill out to turn into you that you keep on file in your records. All right. And then under reports, these are just reports for QuickBooks reports in general. This is going to show you all the reports that are available in QuickBooks for the payroll section. So in other words, you can pull up contractor payments, you can pull up employee details, paycheck history, payroll details, payroll summaries by employees, retirement plans. You can pull up almost any kind of reports you could possibly want in this program. So that would allow you to look at things and decide if somebody needs a particular form or you need totals for something, then you have access to it. And that is QuickBooks Payroll. Didn't take me as long as I anticipated for, but I think everybody should have gotten a pretty good information on how this thing works, enough to jump into and kind of figure things out. If you have questions, you're welcome to set up. And if you're in our trading area, if you're not in our trading area, you need to reach out to your local SBDC. But if you're in our particular area, you're welcome to reach out to me or Cheryl Tucker. We're both QuickBooks Pro advisors. We can assist you with setting up your payroll and walking you through the process or answer any questions you may have. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather to see what kind of questions we've got or whatever, or maybe everybody gets an extra 25 minutes today they weren't planning on. Even though I'm sure there's probably questions.
Yes, I've got a list of questions for you. Thank you so much for all of your insight and information. I always learn so much anytime you present. So while I'm getting ready to load the questions, if you all, I'm going to post let's see here if this will let me repost our virtual workshop poll. That way I'll include a link to it in our follow-up email with the recording to the presentation. But if you'd like to post that information, that will save you some time. Okay, so a comment, Tom, from one of the attendees said, VEC wouldn't let me register because I'm not liable since I don't have any paid employees yet. But
all right,
online,
I'm glad you mentioned. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's one of those things I wanted to mention when I was talking about the setup. So the issue we have here with the VEC, and it's an issue that everybody knows about, is that in order to do a payroll, you have to have a VEC number. In order to get a VEC number, you have to have payroll. So what usually happens is that you basically have to tell the VEC that you are having, or you've already incurred $1,500 worth of payroll, so that you can, in order to get that particular VEC number. Now, do not get that until you are ready to pay somebody. And so in other words, don't get it now if you're not going to be paying anybody for 3 months. But if you're saying, I'm going to do my first payroll next Friday, I need to go ahead and get my VEC number today, then I can go ahead and get it. But don't say, I need to go ahead and get my VEC number because 3 months from now, I'm going to start paying people. Don't do that. The other thing is that you have to look at when you're kind of breaking. In other words, perfect example was I was working with a client last week on the same circumstance with payroll. Said I need to get my VEC number. And it was March 29th. No, it was actually March 30th. And he said, well, I'm going to start paying people next week. When I said, well, if you file it today, you are saying you had liability in the first quarter, when in fact you didn't. If you go after it on Monday, then you're saying you have liability in the second quarter, which you will have. So you also kind of have to look to see if it falls between quarters. It's not going to happen often, but just look at it. If it's at the end of a quarter and you haven't started paying people, I would wait to the next quarter before you file for your unemployment. But I'm glad thank you, Sheridan, for pointing that out, because that is something I meant to state.
you, Tom. Okay, next question is it an easy transition from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online?
Yeah, pretty easy. Yeah, QuickBooks has got it built in. Now, the only case is it depends on some of the features in QuickBooks Desktop are not available in QuickBooks Online. So certain things may not map into across platforms. But for the most cases, QuickBooks has got it set up really swing. I've done multiple ones before, and it has to do with some detailed information, especially if you have inventory and things like that. But if you have a pretty straightforward one, it should export and import pretty well. And there's this, it's built into the desktop version. There's a drop-down box that says export to QuickBooks Online. And again, you can reach out to one of the SBDCs, or if you're in our area, reach out to us. We'd be glad to help you walk you through that.
Absolutely. The next question is QBOA has a built-in backup feature. Is anything like that available?
So, of course, the online service is automatically backed up no matter what. So if all this stuff is backed up online, so there's no need for a backup service. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not. Since this is a cloud-based service, there's no need for, like a desktop, you have a backup service that you can build into your desktop version, or you can just back up yourself or whatever. There's no need for that for the cloud-based version.
Okay. The next question is, when dealing with remote workers, is there an option for that? Or do we have to indicate or choose the location of the company's headquarters?
So this probably gets beyond what we probably need to discuss today, but it depends on where they're located. If they're in the same state, then that's going to be a different situation than if they're in a different state. If they're in a different state, you have to look at how the taxing authority works for that particular state, and if this person's always remote or not. I don't want to get into too much detail into how that works because it's too much variability to it. It is a question you need to ask who's ever, maybe your accountant or whatever, or reach out to us. I can explain you more detail, but it does vary based on where there are same state or a different state.
I placed in the chat, there is a link to our website to go through the advisor match, or if you're not in our service area, I posted a link to go through the advisor match through the state office to get you connected with the other SBDC that's closest to your business. Okay, our next question is, if you are a current bookkeeper that if you currently use a bookkeeper for payroll, can you obtain the federal ID and VEC number for your company from them, or do you need to set up a different set of numbers?
No, you have to use the same number they have, because your VEC number is attached to your business, just like your withholding. That's attached to that EIN number that belongs to your company. So if you've got somebody who's doing payroll, you need to get that information from them. You do not, under any circumstance, want to set up a new one.
Okay. All right, our next question, Tom, is do you always have to enter the employee's hours manually, or can you incorporate a payroll clocking system that you're already using?
So that really depends. I mean, there is, if you're using QuickBooks Time Card or Time Management, which is the upper versions of the payroll, it will flow directly into the time card feature, so you don't have to do that. If it's a third-party software, I don't know. It would really depend on the third-party software, whether it integrates with QuickBooks or not, or whether or not your third-party software has an export function that would work with QuickBooks. That's an integration question that I certainly can't answer. Now, there is something like if you have all your employees that are, let's say they're all salary and everything stays the same all the time, there is a function that you can set up an automatic payroll where you don't have to do anything. It just runs the same checks every time, every pay period, because everybody's the same and nothing changes. You can do that. But in regards to hourly workers, you would either have to use the QuickBooks timesheet part of the program. Or if you've got something like timesheets, which is a separate standalone program. That's about all you could do, or something you have that integrates directly with QuickBooks Payroll.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Does QuickBooks Online give a withdrawal date for all employment taxes?
I'm sorry, what was that now? I lost you.
Does QuickBooks Online give a withdrawal date for all employment taxes?
Yeah, it will show you in there what days that it's going to be taken out or the day it's due. And typically the day it's due, the day they're going to pull it out.
Super, thank you. The next question is, once you initially set up QuickBooks, can you go back and make changes? For example, if your company did not offer 401k the previous year, but now offers it, can that be updated?
Yeah, so all you would do is go into the setup screen of each employee and go into the contributions and deduction screen, and then just add it to that particular employee, or vice versa. If they're not going to have it anymore, you would just go in there and delete that particular. If you saw where I could delete it or edit it, you would just delete that, and therefore it would no longer provide that to that particular employee.
Okay, the next question is, I'm set up currently using QuickBooks Online and have an employee set up for monthly pay. However, it is not running automatically. How can they fix that?
So there is a button in there. I don't think I'd have to log off and log back on, but there's a button. Let's see if it shows. And there's particular criterias that apply when you can do that. I may not have it on my sheet here. Auto pay. See this thing that says auto payroll. So this particular no employees enrolled. So there's certain reasons why an employee can be involved. In other words, it have to be salary, have to be nothing else affecting, et cetera, et cetera. That's how you can set up for an auto payroll. If you have one employee that doesn't fall under that criteria, auto payroll won't work. Now, again, auto payroll is different than automated taxes. Automated payroll means it just automatically pays everybody. You don't have to do anything. Automated taxes means you still have to enter the data, but QuickBooks files the payments and the forms for you. So it's two different things.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, the next question is, we are a government contractor, so all purchases and payroll are tied to different jobs or contracts. Is that a problem with QuickBooks Online?
So it can be done. It's just when I was showing you that setup regards to the setting up the general ledger accounts, you would have to make it a little bit more complicated. Or you probably would have to do it through a higher version of QuickBooks where it has maybe projects assigned to it. I know I have some clients that do that. I would probably have to look into it. I'm not going to give you an exact answer because I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do it at this point, but you can reach out to me. I'm sure I can figure it out or talk to one of the clients that do that already.
Okay, the next question we have is, does QuickBooks provide a check printing capability for employees that do not want direct deposit, meaning would they be able to run checks in the office and print them there?
Yeah, you can buy forms through QuickBooks that are checks that you would just order it with your checking account information. You'd run it through your printer. That's why you'll notice the thing, one place is in there, it said print checks, and there was a little button, you just hit print checks. Or you could just write if you're just writing them, you could just write checks and then stick the information in there. Or, I mean, but QuickBooks will print the checks for you if you have a pre-printed check.
Tom, those are all the questions that I have from the chat. Are
All
there
right.
other questions that you can post them in the chat, or if you feel comfortable unmuting? Oh, here comes one more. If you are using QuickBooks Online to figure payroll, but an accountant to file employment taxes, is it easy to switch to QuickBooks electronically to file employment taxes?
Yeah, I mean,
Their accountant uses a different system.
if you're using online to figure payroll, if you're doing payroll through QuickBooks Online, I'm not sure why you're not filing the reports electronically yourself. Now, it may be that you're not using the payroll module, because you can use payroll just as a standalone thing, but it doesn't do anything. It just helps you figure the numbers out. But what I would do if you're going to be doing payroll internally, there's no reason not to file the employment taxes and the reports, because you see how simple it is. It just automatically does it for you.
Okay, other questions?
All right. Well, as I mentioned, please feel free to reach out to us here. You can actually, if there's a question about setup, I guess Cheryl can handle that from the state, or how does she do that? You might know better than me.
You can. So if you are in the greater Roanoke Valley, the New River Valley, Franklin County, Allegheny Highlands, I've just posted our contact information here at the Roanoke Regional SBDC. If you are not in that region, if you're outside of this area, I am posting a link to the Virginia SBDC, which will walk you through how to get matched up with an advisor that's closest to your area for the SBDC there. And then when you're selecting your request, you'll want to choose the accounting option, and both forms have a place where you can add additional information, or you can also email me at hello@Roanoke Small Business, or our team here in Roanoke, and we can get you connected, go through the onboarding process and get you matched, hooked up with Cheryl Tucker, who offers QuickBooks assistance across the state, regardless of where you are. It's all virtual appointments.
All right. Anything else? I really appreciate y'all being involved. Hopefully it was worthwhile to you, and hopefully that you won't have too much issue getting set up with QuickBooks, and you'll see, hopefully from this, if nothing else, you see how simple it is to process payroll.
Yes, thank you all so much for being here today. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We are all here to support you, and we just appreciate your time today.
Thank you all.